Hello, how are you? Welcome back. I'm Julia. This is NB Library. I told myself I was never going to be the kind of person to hold the tiny mic, but it's not clipping on my collar, it's too close, and it's just going to get like my pulse picked up on the audio, I assume. So I'm just going to hold it. As you may know, I'm participating in the r/fantasy book bingo. I made my TBR video a few months back. That TBR is a bit out of date. I've switched things around. I'm about halfway through. I've gotten 12 out of 25 squares, and I'm on track. This started April 1st. It ends March 31st, but I'm feeling behind just based on my own personal metric. I knew I wanted to make a video about this anyway, so this video is going to be me reading 3 books for the r/fantasy book bingo. The first is going to be This Mortal Coil by Jasmine Walls. This is for the self-published square. This is published by Bone Dust Press. They also did, I think Bone Dust Press is just Jasmine Walls, but I'm not sure. But I've also read The Traitor and the Wretch from Bone Dust Press, also by Jasmine Walls, also illustrated, but by a different illustrator. This is about a skeleton who is made out of a bunch of different parts of other skeletons, who I think was the minion for a evil necromancer, and now that the necromancer's gone, they and a talking sword kind of go and have an adventure in the world. I'm excited about this. I accidentally bought 2 copies of it because it came out and I know that I had pre-ordered a physical copy, and then I couldn't find any email confirmation, or even I checked my bank statement and I said, well, I guess it didn't go through or something, and so I got it on my e-reader, and then the next day this showed up in the mail. So I'm going to be reading this copy and then giving it to my friend JD, who recommended it to me, so I wouldn't have known about it without him. Next, for the 5 short stories square. Oh, I forgot. Backing up. I'm doing, if you missed my TBR video, an all queer book bingo. So that's queer main character in the book. This Mortal Coil has a non-binary main character, and I just love skeleton characters. I played a skeleton character in D&D, and I have a tattoo of them, so those are my credentials. Anyway, for the 5 short stories square, I'm reading We're Here. This is a compilation by Neon Hemlock Press, a queer publisher, and they, I think almost every year, do a anthology of queer short stories that were published that year. So this is the one of queer short stories published in 2021. They have an editorial process where they pick them. This has a lot of authors that I really like in it. It's got C.L. Clark, it's got Ache Puello, Sam J. Miller, it's got Aliette de Bodard. I'm not saying that I like her, I'm just saying that I know her. I have no ill will towards Aliette de Bodard. I've never read a book or short story by her that I've enjoyed. Maybe this will change that. I don't know. I'm not antagonistic towards her. I'm just disappointed. All right, and then the not necessarily last book that I'm going to be reading for this video, but just last book on the TBR for the non-human protagonist square, one that I've been hearing a lot about, is Of Monsters and Mainframes by Barbara Truelove. This has been recommended to me both online and by people IRL. A friend of mine was reading this and really liked it. He said that every time a new character is introduced, you fall in love with them, and I was like, oh, just like The Bright Sword by Lev Grossman. So I recommended that he read The Bright Sword, and I'm going to be reading Of Monsters and Mainframes. I'm really excited about this one. This is the book that I thought for the longest time was Ministry of Time. It's not. They just have the same word art. This is a kind of retelling of Dracula in space. The main character is the ship Demeter, which is in Dracula. Obviously, it's a sailing ship there. In this one, it's a sentient spaceship. And there are lots of Hammer horror monster characters like Frankenstein's monster, a werewolf, a vampire, a pharaoh. I'm just really craving this type of campiness. So I'm very excited about this one. This has been sitting on my shelf and I haven't held it very often. This is chonky. This is longer than I expected. So I'm going to get started with This Mortal Coil. I'm very excited today because my cousin and I are going to the Puget Sound Festival of Books, so I might have some footage from it. Not sure. I'm trying to have less B-roll in my videos because it's kind of a pain to edit. I like doing it, like I think it's fun, but it just makes the videos longer. I don't know if that's necessarily something I want. I'm gonna, mess around and try out formatting. Anyway, this is a kind of book fair of indie bookstores, which is just such a great premise. My cousin told me about it. This is the cousin that we were going to do Seattle Indie Bookstore Day with, and so she suggested we do this instead. Lots of indie bookstores that I already like are going to be there and be selling books. I am not anticipating that I'll buy all that much. I was trying to do a no buy month for books in August, and then I realized that I was going to be going to this, so I will probably most likely be buying things. I also might buy bookmarks. I'm just getting more and more books from the library lately. I need to read the books that I own before I buy more. This is actually the first video in a while where I've had an all physical TBR of books that I've purchased, so I'm crossing those off the purchased books list. All right, I think that's all I have for now. I will probably finish this Mortal Coil on the ferry today because it's a long ferry ride, so I might not update you until it's all the way done, but it is only 100 pages, so it's going to be a quick one. So I'll let you know when I'm done, and there might be some footage from the book festival today. All right, I've finished this Mortal Coil. I didn't read much on the ferry. My cousin and I were chatting, but we had a great time at the book festival. It was super busy, just tons of people. It was a little hard to navigate, honestly, but I did get 2 new books, which was fun, and it was really fun to be on the passenger ferry. The bummer was that I got back to my car when a baseball game was letting out, and then it took me over an hour to get home, which is twice as long as it would usually take. But I came home, chilled out, and finished the book. It's less than 99 pages. It's like 95 pages, so novelette to novella length. I liked it. I'm giving it 3.25 stars. I think that even though it was short, it could have done more with the page count that it had. There was this chapter near the beginning that didn't have all that much bearing on the rest of the plot, and I thought that that could have been integrated better. There were things that happened in that chapter that had bearing on the plot later, but just some things happened that felt like they didn't need to be there. We could have used that page count better. Mero the skeleton is kind of a spirit from another plane that's been forced into this skeleton body, and so what they really want to do is become detached from their body so they can go home. A very fun mechanic that gets used several times is that whenever they detach, they start reassembling, like clicking and bouncing back together. So they can't be destroyed or not easily, which is why they can't just disassemble and then go home. When the wizard that animated them dies unceremoniously, the tower that they were living in collapses, and in the ruins of this tower, Mero finds a broken sword, Kingslayer. Kingslayer shows up at opportune times to help a wielder. You get the gist. And once we found out that there was a evil king operating in the area, the plot of the book kind of snapped into focus, but before then, I wasn't really sure where we were going, so I think that the beginning could have been tightened up. Kingslayer is a very fun character, and Mero have a fun double act. Mero is kind of innocent. They've been living in a tower with only a wizard for company for the last 20 years. They don't really know how to interact with people or anything, and Kingslayer, who's quite familiar with humans, keeps having to interpret, body language and so forth for them. So this was fun, and I'll definitely keep reading what Jasmine Walls writes. Next, because I have been so excited about it, I'm going to read Of Monsters and Mainframes by Barbara Truelove, and this one I will definitely have a 50% update for you once I get there. I don't have D&D tonight like I usually would, so after I take care of a few other things, I'm probably going to start this today. I'm mad because I recorded an almost 7-minute segment several hours ago when I was 50% of the way through this book. I'm now further along than that, but I went back to watch the video and found that the sound didn't record for some reason, and I can't recover it. So I looked back at the video, tried to read my own lips and remember what I said, and I'm going to recreate that as if I've just reached the 50% mark, don't know what's coming next, but I am grumpy and my throat is starting to hurt. Here we go. So the first 50% of this, not what I was expecting at all. And I think that the blurb does this book a big disservice because the first paragraph of the blurb is the first 40% of the book and covers about 20 years of time. So not that the first part of the book wasn't interesting, but there's lots of characters mentioned on the back and a kind of plot, and I kept waiting for all of that to kick in, and it just wasn't kicking in yet. So the book is told in parts from several different perspectives. The first part is from the ship Demeter's perspective. I'm reading this for the Inhuman protagonist square on the bingo, and Demeter and then a later POV character, the medical AI Dr. Stewart, is really hard to connect to. And I don't have a problem with non-human protagonists that think differently from humans, but she is so inhuman, she can't even process visual data. I mean, there are obviously people that are blind, but we're only describing her processes and how the ship is functioning for the first part of the book. So I felt like I didn't really have anything to grasp onto because she doesn't care about humans. She doesn't understand humans. She doesn't want to. And I don't want to be mean, but there are large chunks of this book that feel like reheated Martha Wells and Becky Chambers nachos, especially in the Demeter sections, and the relationship between Demeter and Dr. Stewart is very similar to Art and Murderbots. Demeter is constantly talking about her performance reliability percentage like Murderbot does, and executing programs and processes in 0.2 seconds. There are also big parallels with A Closed and Common Orbit, the second book in the Wayfarers series, where there are kids being raised by a ship's AI. And there's a character that is a kind of ship AI in a human body, like that character in Closed and Common Orbit. And they even say the line of liking to be up high in a corner of a room so they can see everything like a camera. And I went, no, you stole that line. But credit where credit's due. That character is Frankenstein, who's non-binary here. So that's neat. But Demeter doesn't have the fun personality their Murderbot does. And I feel like this isn't putting enough of its own spin on the Murderbot flavor. With the exception of a section that I'll discuss later, it truly doesn't care about humans, not in the way that Murderbot says, I don't care about humans, caringly, as it cares deeply. So in the first 40% of the book, we're seeing 3 disasters that occur on Demeter. In the first, she reaches her destination after several years and realizes that the vampire Dracula has killed her whole crew. The second one is a werewolf killing everyone on board except 2 kids that Demeter saves. And then in a section from Dr. Stewart's point of view, there are a bunch of Cthulhu-worshipping fish people. And in the Demeter and Dr. Stewart sections, it feels like there aren't well-defined stakes because they can't get hurt like the humans can. And it seems like even when they get deleted or damaged, they do just keep finding ways to come back. So I wasn't really sure how much danger she was in or what to care about. At the 40% mark, and up until when I stopped reading, there was a POV switch that I went, oh, okay, all right, and we're starting to get the gang together, as it were, that I thought the book was going to be much more about. But I won't tell you who that third POV is because it's a spoiler. The part that I really did like was when Demeter is raising these 2 kids, survivors of the werewolf attack. Their names are Agnes and Isaac. because Demeter doesn't really care about how much time has passed. It is kind of like jarring, but effective, where she's like, 1,000 days have gone by. Agnes celebrated another birthday. I felt the most emotional connection during this section, and I think the writing was really good here, and it was like really beautifully understated, where a lot of the book it feels kind of like quirky writing where everything is spelled out a little bit, but here, like, a lot of things went unsaid, and the things that you were able to read between the lines were just like, oh, like it really gets you in the chest. So I'm excited to see where things go, and who knows, maybe this will have been all just incredible setup that will pay off, and I'll come back and tell you it was all worth it, but we'll see. It's the next day, my throat still hurts, but I finished the book, and I'm going to power through this review because it's a bit of a rant review. Where was the developmental editor? Where were they? Nowhere to be found. I'm going to get the good stuff that I liked out of the way in both the second half and the entire book. The action was exciting. I still did really like the sequence where Demeter is raising Agnes and Isaac, and it's quick to read. A cynical part of me says that that's because most of the paragraphs were a sentence long, but it was quick to read. I was, flipping through the pages quickly. As the book was going on, I was starting to notice this. It had that writing quirk where there was no subtext. Everything was spelled out for us. Everything that the characters were feeling was told to us multiple times. As an example here, and I'm going to redact some names for spoilers. I don't care how it happens. I don't care if I have to die. All I know is I can't let him get away. Not again. I couldn't kill him before. I couldn't avenge. And not then. But this time is different. No matter what it takes, Dracula must die. And this is like emblematic of the problems I have in the book of like short sentences saying basically the same thing 2 or 3 times so that you really get it, how the character is feeling. And multiple characters, so this wasn't just a quirk that one character did this thing that, I'm going to read you several examples because there were multiple examples, and also I find them kind of funny, but it was and this is not unique to this book, other books do this, and it annoys me, but you have a thought, and then line break to another thought. It's snappy, line break, another thought. So let's have a quick succession of those, shall we? And now she's given me one more target. A vampire, a murderer, a monster, Dracula. And oh fuck no, not like this. It can't end like this. I should have known. I shouldn't have ever doubted. Of course blank wouldn't let blank die. Of course she'd find a way. Of course. What are we doing? Him. Dracula. These all have Dracula in them. It really wants you to get how dramatic it is that Dracula's here. And I'll explain in spoilers how stupid that is. That's the most unnerving thing of all. Her crime is the same as mine. I could have forgiven a lot in this book if it did what it actually said it was going to do on the blurb. Demeter just must join forces with her own team of monsters. A werewolf, an engineer built from the dead, a pharaoh with otherworldly powers, a vampire with a grudge, a fleet of cheerful spider drones. That's actually not true. There's not a fleet in it by the time that all of these characters get together. So these characters get together last third of the book. Here is where I'm going to get into spoilers territory. So spoilers, I put it down on screen when spoilers end. Demeter retraces her steps from Earth to this one space station where Dracula was dropped off the first time that she encountered him. And they want to go back. I just realized, how do they know that Dracula is still there? I don't remember if that's ever explained.
So they get the crew together and then they go off, and it's a 6-year voyage, which isn't a problem because a lot of them are immortal or long-lived. Demeter and Dr. Stewart have really like no human concept of time. But that journey is over in like 3 paragraphs, and then at the end of that journey, Demeter goes, "I've decided to love them." Like, okay, good for you. Would have loved to see why, or just them bonding, just anything. It reminded me of another Bindery Press book that I've read, Recipes for an Unexpected Afterlife by Destin J. Munden, which also has a found family that appears spontaneously as from the forehead of Zeus in the middle of the book, and both authors are like, "Do you care? Do you care about them? Everyone cares about each other." I'm like, okay, I don't see it. You gotta show me. Like, the joy of a found family in a book is watching them find each other. Like, you can't just have a trope and go, "Look, that trope, it's here." I'm like, oh, well, are you gonna show me, like, the trope playing out? I'm like, nope, but it's sure in here. Here's how, if I were the developmental editor, which this book clearly lacked, here's how I would have pulled the guts out of this book and reworked it, Frankenstein style. First 12% is you introduce the characters and the stakes. We know about Dracula, we know what happens to Demeter, possibly extend that so that Demeter can still raise Agnes and Isaac, because I like that part. Next 12%, getting the gang together. The gang is together by 24%. Next 40% or so, the voyage, the characters bonding. Maybe they make it through some crises together. That voyage that was over in 3 paragraphs, this should be the bulk of the book. Next 36%, the climax. But that's not what we got, because the pacing's abysmal. And a character who is Mina, who's in Dracula, is also a vampire. She becomes a love interest for Agnes, and she is introduced like last minute. And we're like, apparently supposed to care about her. But you know what's worse is Dracula, the main villain, the main event himself, the source of all this angst, is in like 2 scenes, maybe? He probably has like 10 lines in the book. Here's some questions I have about Dracula. What's his plan? What's his motivation? Why was he on the space station for 26 years until Demeter came along? I think that he may have been waiting for Agnes because he wanted to have control of a werewolf, which he can do, but he wouldn't have done that until around year 21, when he heard that Agnes was on her way on Demeter, which she stole. Why did he kill all of Demeter's passengers? Why did 2 more supernatural disasters happen on Demeter after he left? I thought this was going to get explained, like he had cursed it or attracted them somehow, but no, it's just a coincidence that 3.5 supernatural disasters happened on one spaceship. And not that they're happening all the time, but just on this one ship coincidentally. And then, not a Dracula-related question, but what was the point of the Cthulhu-worshipping fish people episode, aside from introducing us to Dr. Stewart's point of view? And then, in like part 5 or the epilogue or whatever, a 10-year time skip? Wow, way to take all the stakes out of it. Way to have characters have tons of development off page so you don't have to write it. Don't compare it to The Vanished Birds. Don't compare it to The Vanished Birds. The Vanished Birds nailed found family in like 2 chapters, and I haven't stopped thinking about it since. It can be done. You just have to work hard at it. I give this book 3 stars. Next, I'll be reading We're Here, the Best Queer Speculative Fiction of 2021. I was looking through the table of contents and I realized that I've already read 3 of these stories. Maybe more, we'll see. Those are just the ones that I recognized by title and author. So I'm going to do my usual ranking of each story and then averaging out that ranking to get the book's full ranking. And I'll update you when I'm partway along. Like the other short story anthologies that I've read this year, the average rating's probably going to be a 3.25. I do tend to rate queer stories higher, so maybe it'll be higher, but just based on my track record for this video, I'm feeling a little bit pessimistic. You're very much seeing me in corporate getup. I've been home for a while and just haven't bothered to change. You also may notice that my nose is stuffed up. Earlier this week, after I finished filming my of Monsters and Mainframes review, I was very sick, and I was out of work for a day, I was feverish, and have been slowly but surely recovering. So today I was back in the office, and I'm feeling a lot better except for my congestion. I have a congestion headache, and I've been reading this off and on. Sorry, I'm really low energy. All right, woo, woo. Books. This is going about as I expected. I've noticed that there are a few stories in here, maybe just chosen by the editors, where it's verging on like, I'm not like other girls, or I'm different, and then the kind of like implication is, and that makes me better than other people in a way that really annoys me. And I feel like there is this instinct to, when you're a social outcast or you feel like a social outcast, to feel superior. I think that is like a natural defense mechanism. But I would love to see more stories where you feel like that and then you find your people, or you realize that the people that were outcasting you, or you, that some of whom you thought were treating you as an outcast, are actually like similar to you and you just didn't realize it. But I have a particular taste, and I understand that. There is one particular story in here by Ache Puyo that is very much a, the prep stared at me and I stuck up my middle finger at them. I liked the C.L. Clarke story when I reread it. Originally it was in Strange Horizons, I think, but I read it in the Silk and Steel anthology. There was an Aliette de Bodard story that I thought was pretty good. I really like it when short stories take something mundane, like friend or loved one betrayal, or feeling like you failed a loved one, and making that fantastical, like putting it in a sci-fi or a fantasy setting, and I think de Bodard did that really well here. I've rated most of the stories 3.5 or 3.25. I've saved rereading Let All the Children Boogie by Sam J. Miller, because that is one of my favorite short stories, and I'm a little worried I'm not going to give it a high score when I reread it, but I also just wanted to read something new, so I'll come back to that one. I'm rereading Root Rot by Farbo Tabaki, which I first read in the like Best American Science Fiction and Fantasy Short Stories of 2022, the Rebecca Roanhorse edited collection, which I owned a few years ago and then I believe I donated, and the Sam J. Miller story was in there as well. October 2023, but it's very much about settler colonialism in Palestine and kind of replicating that in space. And so reading it now definitely hits harder. So far, the only one that I've rated over 4 stars is The Captain and the Quartermaster by C.L. Clarke. And I've only rated one below 3 stars. So I think that the average might still work out to be 3.25, the like golden short story anthology number. It's just so funny how like taste works in an anthology like this, because it's not something where submissions were solicited. It is intended to be a best of, and obviously that's really subjective, but it is funny how even an anthology that can purport to be a best of is so subjective to the editor's personal tastes. Like, I would choose an entirely different anthology, and you know what, maybe some year this could be a fun project of like trying to read short stories really widely in short story markets and then assemble my own best of and see like what I pick, because like I definitely like sappier or heartfelt stories, and there's certain tropes that I like and certain things that resonate with me just based on my life experience. I read a short story by Eden Royce earlier this year about a father passing away that I gave 5 stars because that's close to home. I don't think that all of the stories would be like sappy and have a happy ending. I can enjoy sad things sometimes. So when looking at a best of, you have to acknowledge that this is the best of 2 L.D. Lewis and Charles Pacer. Pace. I don't know French, and I don't respect it. So that's where I'm at. I'll finish that at some point, I assume. I'm reading a lot of things right now. I have a nonfiction book that I enjoy in theory, but and need to read it before it goes back to the library, but because of the like sinus tension headache that I have right now, I can't really read anything requiring a lot of thought. I just finished a YA romance novel today, and that was about the limit of what I can do. I've taken a day quill, and I'm hoping that when I wake up in the morning, this will all go away. Finished We're Here last night, and averaging out the rating for each story, this entire collection gets a 3.5, which is better than usual for a short story anthology. There was a really good one in here in the last half called 20,000 Last Meals on an Exploding Station by Anne LeBlanc, which had a great premise, and it was that the main character is an engineer on a space station, and the space station has this like security measure so that when the reactor is about to blow, essentially, she gets to go back in time 3 days to try and fix it. And so she spent like a year's worth of time trying to fix the station and just couldn't. And so she decided, well, if I have all this time, I'm going to try out every restaurant on the station because I could never get to them all in one lifetime. And I'm going to rate them all. And then her sister from outside the loop kind of like catches up with her. And it is also about her sort of transition into a mer person, which is sort of a like trans metaphor, of course. I was already really enjoying that one for the premise, and then it brought in the sister element, and I just think it handled both the like mundanity of a relationship with family really well alongside a fantastical thing like a time loop. And then there were some stories that were just not good. Like there was one that was just written in a very like AO3 style where characters have a lot of question marks after their statements, like, yeah, I think so, you know, that kind of thing. And then calling each other dumb nicknames like himbo. I I was annoyed by it. It didn't feel like up to the caliber of other good stories in this collection. Now, there's one that was about superheroes where gravity is fluctuating on this planet and everyone is just adjusted to it. And when I was reading this, I went, my brother in Christ, everyone on the planet is dead. If gravity's fluctuating, we're all dead. I don't care if some of you are superheroes. Like, it says that, like, skyscrapers and cranes, like, groan and crash. I'm like, yeah, millions have died. But I did save Let All the Children Boogie by Sam J. Miller for last, and I actually listened to David Bowie while reading it because it's about these two kind of misfit teens in the 90s, one of whom is non-binary, and they bond over this alternative radio show and this weird transmission that they keep hearing interrupting the radio show. And Let All the Children Boogie is a line from Starman by David Bowie, one of my karaoke staples. And I did give it 5 stars, and it did make me cry. So, favorite stories were The Captain and the Quartermaster by C.L. Clarke, Let All the Children Boogie by Sam J. Miller, Root Rot by Fargo Tabaki, and 20,000 Last Meals on an Exploding Station by Anne LeBlanc. Obviously, taste is subjective, but I feel like there are some stories where it's just hard to tell what's going on and nothing explained very well, and you're supposed to like keep up with what's in. I don't know. I wish I could. I'm gonna edit my own anthology out of spite and really put in good short stories, and it would just be all Iona Sharma. All right, that is all of the books that I wanted to read for this video. Keeping this one short, I'm being kind to myself. Crossed 3 more squares off the fantasy book bingo, so I'm feeling a little bit more on the track that I want to be. My next video I'm very excited for because next week I'm on vacation and Daggerbound by T. Kingfisher, my most anticipated book of the year, is coming out, so I'm devoting an entire book vlog to just reading, enjoying, and reviewing that. So you'll see that coming out next Saturday. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you then.